Hello, Laura.
Hello, Stephanie.
Happy July.
Happy July. I
I
love how
can't.
we both I love how we were both like, should we do next month's forecast like 2 days ago?
Yeah. This month, it doesn't feel real. It feels like it just like time is an alternate reality or something.
Maybe we jumped timelines.
Something got jumped.
Something happened. How
Yeah.
was your June?
Emotional cancer season, I feel like in particular this year has been a little bit heavier and more emotional. I think because we have that whole sign square from Saturn and Neptune and Aries. So, it always gets us in our feels and in our ancestral wounds. And I'm just
Mhm.
feeling a little more tender than normal, I'd say. What about you?
Yeah. But you started something.
Yes. You can catch me every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for What on Earth with Stephanie Campos, my weekly live stream.
And you're such a natural.
You're so sweet.
It's almost like you were meant to be on the screen.
You're so sweet. It has been my dream since a little tiny child. So we'll see where it goes. I'm feeling excited. I get excited every time I do it. I like do my makeup like I'm going on TV and I
Mhm.
just, yeah, I have fun with it. So
Yeah, act as if.
I appreciate you and your support.
I love it. Um, I feel like the first part of the month was leading up to the two squares on June 15th, and I felt like I was crashing out. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yes.
Especially Jupiter at the last degrees of Gemini. I felt overstimulated and just crashing out all the time between all the news that were happening every day. And I was like, yeah.
Every 35 minutes, there was something new. And yeah, Jupiter at that anaretic degree, it's like information overload, nonstop anxious thoughts, like replaying conversations, having conversations that haven't happened yet. Yeah,
Yes.
just way too much.
Yes. So the biggest, I guess, news stories we're going to recap on, and we're going to start out with May because we filmed last month's forecast really early. And I just wanted to shout out to Stephanie, who predicted that the girlies would be fighting back in the February forecast around the full moon in Leo because Elon and Trump have opposing Mars.
Mhm.
And on May 18th, Elon officially stepped down from the government role after criticizing Trump's big, beautiful bill.
Right, right. Oh my gosh. Yes. And when that happened, Mars, I forget what the specific degree was, but Mars was at the degree of that full moon.
Yes.
So it
I
was
think that,
tied into
yeah,
that full moon, which was
yes.
interesting.
Yes. And this was before the Mercury Cazimi, when Mercury burns up in the heart of the sun and before it's reborn. Then, man, I was like so obsessed with this Freedom Flotilla. I could not stop watching it every night before I went to sleep. I was like, I hope it's like making it through the night. And they announced on May 30th that they were going to set sail to Gaza to break the blockade and arrive around like June 7th. But
Yeah.
because they were, I guess, helping out refugees from, I think it was Libya, they ended up being 2 days later than their original arrival date.
hmm You were giving these amazing updates on TikTok and you had like half the world following you. It was so awesome to see.
Because I was like crashing out about this. If y'all don't know, this was like 12 activists from all around the world. Greta Thunberg, who is a climate activist, was, I think, the most famous one on this boat. And ultimately, they knew they weren't going to make it to the shores of Gaza, but they wanted to bring worldwide awareness that they're literally just bringing water, baby formula,
Mm.
crutches, and actually they are protected by international law. Like, you are not allowed to bomb strike, get on this humanitarian aid boat in international waters, and Gaza is still part of Palestinian territory. So Israel had no jurisdiction to stop them, but of course they did. And the astrology was just so on brand. I felt like this was very Saturn and Neptune and Aries, like the dissolution of boundaries and borders. The moon was in Leo, and it was announced the day after the Mercury Cazimi conjunct Aldebaran, which is like this really powerful Persian royal star. And yeah, they didn't end up making it. And actually, when they were stopped, Mercury had just ingressed into Cancer and was making a square to Saturn.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so literal. And Mercury is the traveler, and Jupiter
Yes.
is support and hope. And oh my gosh, you can't make
Yeah.
this stuff up.
Yeah. Jupiter hadn't made its way into Cancer just yet.
Mm.
Yeah. So then around June 6th, I noticed that when Venus ingressed into Taurus, it was starting to form a square to Pluto in Aquarius. The ice raids started really becoming violent, but on the part of the police and the ICE agents, and because people started
ICE
protesting
agents,
ICE agents in big
quote
boats.
unquote, aka Proud Boys, dressed
Yeah.
up as ICE agents.
Yeah. Do you think that's who they are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically thugs.
Yeah.
And people started to obviously protest this in Los Angeles, and then they started getting violent. And I just thought that was so interesting, too, because they were targeting people at their jobs, like um, at
Hmm.
restaurants. And I thought that was so Venus and Taurus squaring to Pluto and Aquarius. It's like, oh, you want them to leave this country because you're saying that they don't have jobs, but you're targeting them at their jobs. Like, which one is it?
Yeah. And there were also around that time two videos of one. I know a lot of families are getting separated, a lot of mothers are getting separated from their children, but there is this one video in particular, I think in Worcester, Massachusetts,
Mm-hmm.
of this
Mm-hmm.
mom who was
Saw that.
separated from her teen and her infant. And ICE had pinned her like 13, 15-year-old daughter to the ground. And this infant baby is like crying in someone's arms, and it was like a particularly brutal and heartbreaking video. And then around the same time, there was another video, or I don't know if it was a video, but it was news of a pregnant woman who was detained by ICE, who was a literal US citizen, and she
Mm.
was like about to go into labor. She was super close to giving birth, and she had to go to the hospital after that for like obviously stress and for a checkup. But so, Venus can be representative of femmes, women, non-binary folks, and you see it crashing into Pluto, and you can see some really like horrible and unsettling things.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
Mm.
And by the way, California is Mexico. I'm
Yes.
not saying it to you, Stephanie. I'm saying it to
Yeah.
like our
Oh,
audience.
yes.
Like
Yes.
the United States stole so much land from Mexico. And what I think is interesting is Los Angeles specifically is going through its Pluto return. Its
Mm.
natal Pluto is at 4 degrees. And I'm just like, you can't deport people who are indigenous to that land. Like there is no such thing as illegal people on stolen land. And I think that's another signature of Saturn and Neptune and Aries.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, look at all of the names of our cities. San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. Like, what do you think? Eye roll.
Literally.
Anyone listening on the podcast, there were eye rolls that were just happening.
Big side eye.
Yeah.
Um, so then we had this full moon in Sagittarius, and this is Trump's full moon, I guess, because he hits a Gemini sun, Sagittarius moon. And this full moon was at 20 degrees of Sag, and Gavin Newsom has a 20-degree Mars in Sagittarius, and Trump's is like 21 degrees of Sag. And I thought this was interesting because the court blocked Trump's call for the National Guard to enter LA. And I just thought that was such an interesting manifestation of like Gavin Newsom's Mars on Trump's moon.
Ooh, yes. Wow.
It's like,
Wow.
no.
Yeah, that's what Mars does.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Such a good point.
It's the astrology was just so on brand.
Mm-hmm.
And then around the same time, around the full moon in Sagittarius, Israel struck
Yeah.
Iran. And Israel has a natal Mars at 28 degrees of Leo. So they were going through their Mars return. And it just seemed that every time their Mars was is triggered, they do some kind of preemptive strike, which is it's like fake, right?
It's
Preemptive
made up.
is made up.
Yeah. There's no such thing as a preemptive strike. It's a strike. It is initiating aggression and violence. That is what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we really saw in the media the coverage after this, like Iran, retaliation. And it
Mm-hmm.
just has that connotation of like, ooh, how dare they retaliate?
Mm-hmm.
When it's like they were provoked. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
initiate this. This is all because of Israel.
Yes. And it's so interesting because like I'm so suspicious now of Western media because I like don't believe anything that they say, that I have to end up doing my own research. And what I found is that Iran has all of this oil that the US basically wants, and is then BP, the oil company, is like basically what I'm trying to say is there's their country sitting on all this oil, but it's all that oil is earmarked to BP, which is I think an American company, and the Iranian people can't even have access to their own resources and are not able to live their life without a foreign entity trying to like steal their stuff.
Which
So,
is exactly what US empire does
yes.
through colonization,
Mm-hmm.
imperialism, extraction, and it's such a good point, and I'm glad you're talking about this because, yeah, if you're reading and consuming Western media, just know that that company is owned by a billionaire
Mm-hmm.
and they have a bias, an agenda, and they have editorial um, suggestions, strong suggestions that they put in place for their edit team. This is coming from someone who has worked in book publishing, magazine publishing, digital media. That's my earthly world background and skill sets. And it's something I experienced from national publications to the local level when I was editor at a weekly alt newspaper. And if it's happening on that small of a level, you can bet it's happening with our national news. So if you read something, just also seek out a second source like Middle East Eye, Al Jazeera, even The Guardian or BBC. Just look at another source. You don't have to just take at surface level, consume only Western media.
Mm-hmm.
And like to Laura's point, there are ulterior motives. So, yes, Iran is sitting on all this oil. There's I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, the Strait of Hormuz,
Hormuz, yeah.
Hormuz,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is this like narrow passageway that 20% of the Earth's or like the global oil and gas supply passes through on a daily basis. So this is billions of dollars. Like, obviously, the US would be interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
And Iran just found 7,000 tons of a rare earth mineral that is called antimony.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that happened in March of 2025 this year that they found this. And
Mm-hmm.
this mineral is used to make do
Nuclear
weapons.
bombs, right?
Yeah. And also tech. right? So it's
Yeah.
incredibly coveted. And
Mhm.
on top of this, the only other supply of this rare mineral, like in mass, is in China. And guess who is keeping that rare mineral from the US? China. So it seems that the US might be interested in getting access to the 7 tons of
Mhm.
rare earth mineral. And I don't know, IDK, maybe that's why we're bombing Iran.
Yes. Yeah. It's like when I honestly, I try sometimes just to hear what Western media is saying. So I sometimes watch CNN and they either are purposely lying or they're dumb because the things I hear is like, well, they want to impose their jihadists on the US, so we must take them out. And I'm just like, first of all, there's a reason why they don't like us is because we keep bombing them. And like
Correct.
these things don't happen in a vacuum. Why do they not like us? Maybe it's because we keep going there and trying to take their stuff. So
Correct.
I guess what I'm saying, because like Neptune is in Aries and Neptune can be this placement on this like transit about propaganda and not really knowing the truth. And Aries is obviously war. And I think I'm really glad to see though people are not buying it this time as much. But I think getting underneath the layer of like what it is that the US really wants, and it's always resources, it's always minerals, it's always something that they want that
Money.
they can't just fairly trade like normal people. It's like
Yeah.
we need to go there and take your stuff and bomb the people. It's like what? It just doesn't make sense. But yeah. Um
Um, did you see that meme that was like, we're having a bush summer, like,
yeah,
and then it was like, not this bush summer,
that
you
wasn't the
know?
Bush summer we meant.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we all literally remember. It wasn't that long ago that Bush was
Yeah.
like weapons of mass destruction. And it's like, hey, we knew that was a lie, you know?
Yes.
But
What's
anyway.
interesting is that when 9/11 happened, that was Jupiter in Cancer, 2001.
Mhm.
And then 2 years after 2003 was when ICE was created,
Yes.
when the US invaded Iraq. So it is connected. Like when the US does something abroad, it's like they do the same thing to people here. It's connected.
Yes, absolutely. You also just reminded me I got stoned and looked up Ice's birth chart and I put it in my phone and I had some important realizations, but they obviously left my mind. So I'll report back. I'm going to take notes. But there was some transit that I saw that I was like, ooh, maybe we can take this down.
June 14th, there was a nationwide No Kings protest against Trump's military style birthday parade, which was, I felt, very Mars. This was the day before the exact Mars Uranus square and the Jupiter Saturn square.
What a sad birthday party.
Very sad.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I loved seeing, or I didn't see it because I didn't watch, but I heard that the people in the army were like going out of step and as a
Mm-hmm.
form of protest.
Oh,
Hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're supposed to be like very like disciplined and all in sync, and they were stepping and marching out of sync on purpose as a form of protest.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was supposed to be the transit where everyone was hoping that he would be taken out because Trump has a 29-degree Mars natally, right? No, ascendant, sorry.
Hmm.
Ascendant, which is conjunct to Regulus. And I really believe this man is protected. He's being protected by a higher power. He has to be
That's what
because
Regulus does.
yes, right? And Regulus is a royal star. So the fact that he also believes he should be this king, I thought the astrology was so on brand and um but nothing happened. But who knows? Maybe we were all saved because I don't want JD Vance. as a president. I think he's way worse.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, so it wasn't on, or was it on the day of the military parade that we had the
Yes,
Democratic representatives that were murdered?
that
Yeah.
was the same day. Yes.
So we had this interesting thread that you and I were talking about where we had these politically motivated hits on the
Hmm.
Mars Uranus square. And last year, under the Mars Uranus conjunction, so the inception point,
Hmm.
that was Trump's quote unquote assassination attempt, which you could also call a quote unquote politically motivated hit.
Hmm.
Um, but now, this one was real. And I think it really shows us that we're on the precipice or I mean, we're in like
Hmm.
Civil War territory,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know?
I feel like nobody made a big deal about that. Like we should have made more of a big deal about that than we did. Like whoever put a hit on them followed them and like hunted them down.
And had 70 people on the list.
Yes.
Waltz was one of them, right?
Yes.
And Trump didn't even call him.
Yes. Like that was actually a really scary story that I felt like was overshadowed by the nationwide protests that were going on, obviously,
Yep.
um and him kind of I think he was blaming Pete Hegseth. He was like mad at him because he there was like all these pictures going around of him yawning at his birthday party.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, it was, I think, but what I kept saying to people is that this is actually dangerous because Trump is a narcissist and narcissists love attention. And the fact that his ego was wounded in some way, I felt like he was going to retaliate to do something else, which then he later did. When
mm,
a couple of days later he said yes to bombing Iran.
hmm.
But we'll get to that in a moment. I thought it was also funny that on June 19th was the TikTok ban that was extended from April, and nobody talked about it.
I know. They're just like,
There's too much
reset.
going on. The first ban was on January 20th when the sun was conjunct Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius, and that was the same day as the inauguration. The second ban was on April 4th when Pluto was stationing to go retrograde on May 4th at 3 degrees. The third ban was June 19th, and Pluto is retrograde at 3 degrees. The fourth ban, September 17th, is when Pluto will be back at 1 degree of Aquarius,
Mm,
going back to that January 20th timeframe. So I guess we'll
interesting.
see.
We'll be around eclipse time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we'll see. June 20th, finally some good news. I felt like after the solstice, things just seemed to be like after those squares were separating, I felt like we were getting some good news finally.
Yes.
The judge ordered Mahmoud Khalil to be freed. He was arrested on March 8th, 2025, when Mars was at 17 degrees of Cancer. Remember when Mars was like at 17 Cancer for like a month?
Forever.
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 And it was conjunct the moon at 17 Cancer. And yeah, June 20th was the solstice. And it officially closed out the Mars retrograde story.
Amazing.
On June 21st, the very next day, or a couple of hours, the US bombed Iran, even though Iran has no nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Then on June 22nd, the Iranian parliament closes the Strait of Hormuz, which allows the transport of 1/5 of the world's oil supply. That was when the sun in Cancer was square to Saturn in Aries. Pretty literal.
Yeah.
And then June 24th, Zoran Mamdani wins the Democratic mayoral ticket, beating Cuomo. Fuck yeah.
Yes.
On the Jupiter Kazemi.
So nice to have these bright
Yes.
spots and to see those images of Mahmoud Khalil with his wife and his baby that he
Baby.
wasn't able to, be there when he was born.
Mhm.
Um, and he's already back out protesting.
I know. Like at
Legend.
at Columbia
Legend.
too.
Yeah. Icon.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for those of you who aren't New Yorkers, this is like a really big deal because Zohran Mamdani is, first of all, Muslim.
Hmm.
And I didn't know this, but it makes sense. But New York is the second, no, it has the largest Jewish population outside of Tel Aviv.
I just
So
saw that on Instagram today.
yeah, so the fact that he won and he's a socialist
Hmm.
and he didn't take any PAC money,
Hmm.
like this is a big deal because it basically tells Democrats that you don't need to sell your soul to win an election.
Correct.
So I think this is going to be replicated in other cities. So hopefully we will see more.
And so it is
And
on this
so it
new
is on this
moon
new
in
moon.
Cancer. Yes.
And
And
it
he
was
wants
such,
to protect the people. He wants free
yes,
childcare. He wants free
yes.
buses. Oh my gosh, it's just it is
And
so Jupiter in Cancer conjunct, new moon
mhm,
coded, and it's heartwarming.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And the fact that it really was all about the ground, like the grassroots, like people canvassing for him, because he nobody knew who he was. Like
Hmm.
everybody hears Cuomo, they understand ugh. Like I can't. Ugh. Every time I think about him, I'm just like, ugh. Um, and I think like he has brand recognition, and not many people knew about Zoran Mamdani. So it really was just a testament to all the cardinal energy in the air that when people like fight back and the people united will never be defeated. It was just so like hope core.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was like, finally.
Amazing.
And so many people were saying, okay, not so many people, but there was a couple of astrologers on threads that I was kind of arguing back and forth with it, which is like a thing now. I'm like, just leave me alone. That were like, this Jupiter Kazemi is not going to be as sweet because of the square to Saturn. And I'm like, yeah, but it's separating. I'm like, just give us this moment of Delulu, you know?
Yeah, it's separating and it is what you make it. And life has
Mm-hmm.
duality. So,
Yes.
yeah, there can absolutely be room and space for sweet spots, and we need to have joy.
Yes. 100%.
Mhm.
So, should we get into July? Are you ready
L-
for it?
Oh, let's do it. I just want to say before we dive in, so we're halfway through the year. July's astrology has one of the events that is the biggest of all of 25. So just like a little teaser for you all listening.
Mhm.
This is definitely a month you're going to want to pay attention to.
Yeah. It's like we're living in multiple epic outer planet transits all at once.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. But we start out, you wanna
Want me to
tell us
do
how
it?
we're yeah,
July.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so July 4th, which is the solar return of the United States of America.
Hmm.
We've got many different transits going on.
Hmm.
The first is Venus and Taurus conjunct Uranus and Taurus at 29 degrees. Okay.
Anaretic degree. The astrology of this July 4th feels so intense. And
Mhm.
I was just recording my daily horoscopes before this, and there's like two void moons leading up to July 4th, and it just feels so eerie. Like it feels like like Joan
Yeah.
Quigley, the astrologer who worked for Reagan, Nancy Reagan,
Uh-huh.
used to
Reagan?
Reagan, yeah, yeah. Um,
Mhm.
fucking asshole. I don't know how to pronounce his name. But he would use this astrologer to pass legislation or hold
Mhm.
votes
Mhm.
during void moons when like nobody was
Mhm.
paying attention.
Mhm.
So I feel
Mhm.
like we really need to just kind of pay attention leading up, especially to this July 4th, because yes, the
Yes.
astrology is wild, but it just feels like something they're trying to slip something
Yep.
past us.
Yes.
Hmm.
Good point. Yeah, and the fact that it's at the anaretic degree, which now I've come to learn as the crash out degree.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
um, I've learned that a lot of stuff comes out at that degree. It's like, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And we have Uranus, which is going to be unpredictable. We have Venus, which is relationships. It
Mhm.
can also like collectively signify femmes, queers, non-binary, LGBTQIA community. Um, so there could be some sort of legislation passed around this time. I think on a personal level, normally Venus conjunct Uranus could be fun. It could be a time where you run into someone unexpected, or you take a creative risk, or you take a risk in a relationship. Sometimes relationships end unexpectedly, but because it's at this anaretic degree, it just makes me feel like, oh, like I don't know.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like a market crash. That's what it kind of feels like,
Ooh,
right?
yes. Because Venus
Like,
also has to do with our finances.
yes, and
Mm.
value and conjunct Uranus. And I think the New York Stock Exchange has it's I think it has its sun around this degree of Taurus. I have to like look that up again. But
Oh, yeah. Um, because you said values, this also, I'm going to say like posi manifestation. It feels like some sort of collective organizing, like
Mhm.
standing up and taking a risk for your values. Like
Mhm.
people like have had enough.
Yes.
It feels like very anaretic degree, and maybe more people are activated and encouraged to take risks for what they believe in.
Mhm. Yeah, I also forgot to mention that there was a march to Gaza too that
Mm.
weekend of the after the flotilla, and I knew that was not gonna pan out just because of the squares, right? You saw that they wouldn't even,
You even texted me. You're like, should I let
yeah,
them know that this is not the weekend?
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
you
I was
called that.
like, mm-mm. I'm like, they're like, I've been to Egypt. So, like, I just know that they do not mess around. And I'm like, there's no way that government is going to let a bunch of activists like cross that border.
Mhm.
And you just saw like all of these people fly into the Cairo airport and just being detained and having their passport taken. And I was like, oh, those squares, they're not getting anywhere. And so, but what it really did show though, that what people were so fed up that they were willing to fly halfway across the world to do something finally, like with the flotilla, with the ICE protests, the freedom, I mean, the walk to Gaza. So I feel like what you're saying is, I feel as well. It's people just had enough and they're just going to start to take more action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because on the same day, Venus will then enter Gemini until July 30th.
And this is a great transit for organizing,
Mhm.
for especially on a local level. Gemini energy is about like your surrounding environment, your community, going to your local library, going to your local coffee shop, getting to know the barista that works there, making friends with your neighbors, helping out, volunteering in your community. Yeah, it can be a social time. You can crave more intellectual stimulation, like in your sexual relationships, but I think it is also collectively really important for community building.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And on a personal level, this could just be um like hanging out with friends, just going out more, dating, um,
Non-committal, having
not
fun.
committal.
It's
Yeah.
going to be hard to pin people down,
Yes.
but have
It's
fun.
like dating three people at the same time and
Yes,
seeing which one you like.
absolutely. It's like tapas, right? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, the same day, Neptune retrograde in Aries will bring you back to March 30th.
This, I think, is the transit. This and the Venus Uranus really stood out to me because Neptune has to do with our beliefs. It has to do with compassion and like kind of the collective universal experiences that we share as humans. So I
Hmm.
feel like there is going to be some sort of major news or event or something that happens that has the potential to really awaken and shift people's perspectives.
Yeah.
You know, whether it is a dark and serious event or whether it is something that is bringing us closer to humanity and what we and Earth deserve, I do think that there is going to be some sort of thread that hopefully reminds people that
Hmm.
we are all interconnected.
Yeah. Um, I was also thinking like I feel like so much of the war of okay, there's a genocide, but I mean like the escalation of potential World War III or that being in people's consciousness, right, at this time, just started escalating after Neptune entered the sign of Aries. Ever since March, right? Like people were all of a sudden starting to talk about that.
Hmm.
And so maybe when it goes retrograde, we've like de-escalated some of that.
Mm,
But I
yeah.
mean, I say this as like the next couple days.
Well, and I mean, yeah, I think that's a good interpretation because we know February of 2026 is when Saturn and Neptune officially come together.
Mhm.
And we know that's going to be something important
Yeah.
regarding war.
Yeah.
Um, so perhaps, yeah, perhaps this is a time of walking back.
Mhm.
And maybe other people uh, kind of removing the veil.
Mhm.
I'd totally watch out for misinformation. I
Mhm.
wouldn't jump to reporting things too quickly on this day. You know, I would
Yeah.
seek out multiple sources.
Mhm.
Um, Miscommunication and misunderstandings can also take place. You can feel more exhausted. Drink your water. I wouldn't recommend drinking alcohol. Save it for a couple days later.
I know. Being sober during this time is wild, people.
Oh my
I
God.
no drinking, no drugs. I'm just like,
It's rough.
what a time to decide to be sober.
Yes. I've given myself permission to smoke twice a month, and it's heavenly. It is everything and more.
What I also noticed just in like my friend group and generally I think with the social media age that we're living in is Aries jumps to conclusions. I'm an Aries. So I also noticed that anytime something happens now in the news, people automatically jump to the worst case scenario. And that happened with when the US bombed Iran and everyone's like, we're in World War III, we're entering World War III. And then it was like, no, everybody like take a moment and chill because then you found out that the US warned Iran. So they all evacuated, there were no casualties. And then you found out that they had been Israel and the US had been practicing this maneuver during the Biden administration, right? Like you started to like find these things out slowly but surely, but like when you just jump to the worst case scenario like an Aries would, um and not know all of the information like Neptune, then yeah, you're going to start to crash out.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
I was just like, let's all just like wait. Let's just wait until it all comes out. Because then you're like, if they don't have nuclear weapons, what was this all for? It was all a show, which I think
Money.
is also Neptune
Yes.
and money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So July 4th, Venus and Gemini will sextile Saturn and Aries at 1 degree.
Yeah. This is
Sextiles are
great.
cute.
This is cute. This is great for signing a contract, making a commitment, um, focusing on a creative task. If you're like writing a novel or you're writing poetry for fun or you're doing any hobby that you enjoy, maybe you're ready to do it a little bit more consistently.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, good for like it's good stabilizing energy.
Yes. I like the term now with Saturn is like locking in. It's
Mm.
like, you know, making something real
Hmm.
as you need Saturn to do that. So I think, sextiles are those aspects that kind of like play in the background that you kind of have to use that energy because it's really fast. So yeah, this could be a good day to, like you said, like take something like writing seriously. Even though I'm like, Gemini energy, I feel like is not a focused energy. It's more
True.
like chaotic and unhinged, but that could
Yeah.
be good.
Hmm.
Because on the same day, Venus and Gemini will sextile Neptune and Aries, which I think is lovely too. I think this is a very supportive day.
Yes. July 6th, super cute. When Venus and Neptune come together, it's a great time for compassionate interactions. It's a great time for divination, for
Mhm.
magic making and co-creation, um, and for healing interactions as well. So I think personally, it helps you access your creative mind. It can give you new ideas and inspiration. And it's really great for like restorative work as well. Like
Mhm.
maybe you're going to do some body work, or maybe you're going to get a massage, or like tending to yourself and others and nurturing yourself and others.
Yeah. This is like just a feel good, like, I love you. It doesn't have to be romantic love, but let's
Hmm.
let's do something together.
Yes, I appreciate you.
Mhm. Okay, so July 7th is the moment we've all been waiting for. Uranus will enter Gemini. Dun dun dun.
Da, da, da. For the first time since 1941 through 1948. Pop quiz. Who can tell me what happened during that time period?
Nothing of significance.
Nothing of significance. No.
Well, it was World War II,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And Uranus is a 7-year transit. Um, what I found interesting about this time period in the fall that will match why the US went into World War II is it was December 7th that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Uranus was retrograde at 27 degrees. So that's like, and that attack is why the US entered World War II.
27
So,
degrees of Taurus.
yeah, Taurus,
Oh,
when it was retrograde.
oh.
So then the US officially entered World War II in December 8th, 1941, when it was still in Taurus. So this retrograde in Taurus is happening this fall.
Yeah,
So
it is.
I'm like, what is that attack, or what is the consent or manufactured consent that then brings us into a war? Because let's just be realistic. And I know a lot of people don't like hearing this because they're like, do say something positive. But every time Uranus has been in Gemini, we have been involved in some war. This is the reality.
That's just a fact.
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
So, what kind and where, I guess, is what we don't know.
Yes. Yes. Um, Yeah, I mean, you don't need an astrologer to tell you. It's not fear mongering to tell you that we're already seeing acts committed in this country and abroad that are consistent with World War III or a civil war. So,
Mhm.
um, it's just patterns,
I think
you
it's
know.
going to be both.
Me too.
I
Gemini
feel
duality.
right. I
Hmm.
feel like they're going to do something shady because they always do. They're going to drag us into some kind of foreign war or whatever. And if they draft people, that is what's going to create the civil war,
Yeah. Yeah.
or something is going to prompt the infighting.
I mean, I feel like a large chunk of Americans, like all the polls that I'm seeing about the US bombing uh, uh, um, Iran is like nobody agrees with it. It's like 60% of people are like WTF,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
So people aren't falling for the same propaganda.
Mhm. Yeah, because it's like the empire is losing its grip on the narrative. It's like, how many times are you going to go to a foreign place, which apparently is like every single day,
Yeah.
and spin the same story?
Yeah.
Like you can't expect people to want to bomb a country while, by the way, I'm going to go off in a little side quest here. Israeli citizens get free healthcare and free education because of our tax dollars, but we don't have that. So it's like, why do other people get to have what we pay for and not us?
100%.
Which is why I think this like foreign war, genocide, whatever, is actually going to spark an internal war.
Totally. Totally. Um, and something else that you mentioned, just like how we consume like the information that we consume or spinning certain stories.
Mhm.
Something else that I noted that I thought was super interesting about Uranus and Gemini was the first regularly scheduled nightly news broadcast on American television was in February of 1940 by NBC. And then by the end of 1948, CBS television news was also having this like 15-minute nightly newscast. So the last time Uranus was in Gemini, we have revolutionized the
Mhm.
way that we receive our information and
Mhm.
news. And I just saw a post on Instagram yesterday, I think by like CNN or something, that said like the majority of Americans are consuming their news via social media.
Mhm.
So I think that this next news cycle is going to break down legacy media outlets
Mhm.
and the way that we consume news, who we consume news from. Like you see people like Hassan Piker and
Mhm.
um
Swoon.
yeah, and us, you know, like I don't know. I just think that there's going to be major shakeups.
Mhm. Ooh, I love that you brought that up because this is why your soul wanted you to create a astrology news show, because
Mhm.
you're already ready for the next wave of how news stories are going to be formatted, and it's going to be based on people's interests. Like Hassan Piker is a Twitch guy, right? And you're
Yeah.
an astrologer, and but you're also being able to bring awareness and inform people about what's going on in the world. Ooh, I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, right?
Gemini, right? Two topics.
Two topics. I'm playing to Uranus and Gemini.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, because I wrote on threads about how, again, I'm battling with people in threads.
I love this. I've deleted my threads, but I shouldn't have. My goodness.
I'm very active on there, but I wrote that the US and like other countries, not just the US, they are occult people. They understand energy. And so they use these solstices, which are portals. They have been portals for ancient civilizations for thousands of years. It literally means sun stand still. So when people pray and they infuse the timeline with higher consciousness, they then like bomb a place to infiltrate the energy with trauma and fear. They do it on purpose.
Mm,
So it's so important to like be aware of what you're being fed and what you're watching and how your body is reacting, because you don't want to keep being in that place of like powerlessness, because that's what they
mhm.
want.
Yeah.
And because they control the media, then they just feed you lies. So I really like this Uranus and Gemini interpretation that you have.
Thank you. Where it's the news is coming from the people, for the people, by the people.
Mm-hmm. So Uranus, so the US has a Uranus and Gemini natally. And so the American Revolution was a Uranus and Gemini cycle. The Civil War was one as well, and World War II. And some the US changed its form in some way. And so the last 250 years that it's existed, it has broken up other places and gained its hegemonic power. And so my prediction with this Uranus in Gemini is that parts of the US are going to break apart. And I think California might be first.
We're
Texas,
for
California,
sure
right?
first. Bye. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think so because um I think all the parts that were part of Mexico, so like Texas, California, New Mexico, Arizona, they were actually ceded. And ceded is just a fancy word meaning stolen
Mhm.
by the US, like right before I think they discovered Neptune. So that was like
Mm.
18650 something. Um,
Mm.
1840 something. And that is when the US went to war with Mexico for these states
Ooh.
essentially. So I think this Neptune in Aries also, because we're rhyming cycles here, I
Mhm.
think that part is going to be broken off.
Yeah.
We
That'll
shall see.
that I think something very similarly. Mhm.
You do?
Yeah, yeah. I think that, I mean, very Civil War-ish, right? I
Yeah.
think that they're absolutely going to, this country is going to be divided and
Mhm.
no longer be, quote unquote, the United States.
Yes. Unfortunately, another I don't even want to say this out loud, but I have to. Another signification of Uranus in Gemini is technological
Mm.
advancements. And unfortunately, they have been weapons of mass destruction. So December 28th, 1942, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt authorized the formation of the Manhattan Project to bring scientists and military officials to work on nuclear research. Did you watch Oppenheimer?
No,
Oh my God.
it looked
It's
like a
so
snooze
long.
movie.
It was so long. I was like, it's it's too long. And also you're glorifying a man that invented like such a disastrous weapon.
Yeah.
And then on August 6th, 1945, the US dropped its first nuclear bomb on Hiroshima and then 3 days later on Nagasaki. So I don't want to even like put this out into the universe, but just given how nefarious this country is, I'm wondering if they're gonna invent other weapons of mass destruction.
And we've already seen a lot of these new weapons and the quote unquote, I don't think upgrade is the right word, but the transformation, the revolution of these
Mhm.
weapons being tested out on Palestinians.
True.
And so we're probably going to see more of those weapons being used all over the world.
Mhm.
Um, can I tell you something freaky?
Yes.
So the night that Jupiter went into Cancer, maybe it wasn't that day. No, it was recent. It was like within the past week. I had a dream that there was a nuclear bomb that got dropped. And I had Sloane and I had to figure out what to do. And like the whole time I was like, do we stay in the house? There's too many windows. I was like, if we go in the
Mhm.
garage, there's only one set of windows. I was like, we don't have anywhere under. It was just, it was crazy. I've never had a dream like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, but it
So
was like you have and I'll just say this, it could have been because right before I went to bed, I was reading what to do if a nuclear bomb is dropped.
I was literally gonna say because they started making TikTok videos about that. And so I've watched those videos and I'm like,
Yeah. It's like close your eyes, don't look,
uh,
then you have 10 minutes to get underground before the
mhm.
fallout yeah, so it was like that, but that was like my whole dream and I was like, "Whoa, I've literally never dreamed anything like that."
Whoa. That's kind of freaky coming from you because you have like premonition dreams.
I have pretty intense dreams, yeah. But hey, not to say it's a premonition, but just because we're talking about that. And to your point, like, yeah, I would not be surprised. I think another signification of Uranus in Gemini is the quote unquote innovation
Mhm.
of communication, technology, space travel, short distance travel. We'll probably have
Mhm.
flying cars, like
Mhm.
finally, like, excuse me, that should have already happened. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know, maybe shoes that we can fly around in. Who knows?
Yeah.
Um, something. Space
Yes.
travel will be more like short distance travel.
Mhm.
They're trying to capitalize that.
Mhm. Well, we already saw it this year with the women's freedom movement in
Can I
Paris.
just say, okay, so obviously, big hater of that stupid space trip. I thought it was like the biggest waste of money, horrible to our environment. Like, anyways, everything like that. Um, Katy Perry's marriage is in shambles.
I know, I saw that. And I saw that he wasn't happy with her that she took that trip. So
He's
I'm
not
wondering,
happy about the space trip.
I'm wondering if that was the nail on the coffin.
Seems karmic, but I don't know.
Damn.
Anyways,
Yikes. I know, I saw that. I was like, I wonder what he thinks of all this. Because she definitely got weirder, right? Like she was hanging out with Lauren Sanchez and Jeff Bezos.
she's like her bridesmaid or something.
Yeah, I'm like, what? You were such a like I loved her as like an indie pop artist, and then she just like became weird.
It went all downhill when she went on American Idol with that country singer who has two first names.
That's true.
Luke Bryan. All country singers have two first
Me
names.
too. Um, yeah, so Uranus in Gemini is technological advances. I'm hoping that there's a new social media platform that's more
Yes.
conducive to actual social interactions versus like ads and stuff.
Hmm.
And what else? Anything else?
I'm hoping that we can release the reverse engineered alien technology that has renewable energy sources and take down the billionaires. Is that too much to ask for in the 7 year transit?
Yes. Yes.
That's all I want. That's all,
If
you know.
you're into conspiracy theories, there are that technology is already out there. They just kept
Mhm.
it hidden, right? Like that was Nikola Tesla's whole thing and they just like pop them because they don't want that information to get out there.
Well,
And
it
I
would
do,
take down billion-dollar
yes,
industries. Yeah.
yes. I do think it's I do think it's connected that it's so hot in New York. We're having a heat wave and they are bombing. They've continuously bombed Gaza for 2 years straight. Like that has to
Yeah.
have an environmental impact.
Echo side, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just
It's
like,
it's the amount of how many atomic bombs? 7
I
or
think it's
something?
more than that.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are even survivors left in Gaza is like a miracle. If you
Yeah.
look at photos of like what they're living in like rubble basically. So
Yes.
also what's interesting is Israel has a Uranus and Gemini in their chart.
Oh no.
Yes, very true. Because it was established in 1948.
Of
So,
course.
so it has a Uranus and Gemini, and somebody else. I think Trump does, right? I think Trump
Ugh, yes, he
and
does.
Biden.
Okay, well, bye 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 Biden.
He's
He's on the way out.
on the way out. Somebody, I just saw a meme that said, if President Biden was alive to see this, sorry,
So good.
it's so disrespectful to the elderly.
What?
Um, so yeah, I think also Uranus entering Gemini after Independence Day is just very on brand with the United States. So I guess we'll see what will unfold. But for you personally, you want to look at your Gemini whole sign house and see what Uranus is trying to liberate you from, awaken you from, and shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be time to take risks in that area of your life. Whatever has been your normal status quo comfort zone is about to like completely shift.
Mm-hmm. Yes. On the same day, Venus and Gemini will trine Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees.
Well, hey, this is cute in the backdrop. We'll
Mm-hmm.
take it.
Mm-hmm.
Great for
Yeah.
deepening your relationship with someone, for also for changing your relationship patterns and habits in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm. Organizing energy, go to a community kitchen,
Mhm.
go to a rally, get educated in revolutionary theory.
Mhm.
There's this place called the People's Forum in New York City, and they have like classes about, Fred Hampton. It's a
Ooh,
socialist place, so they're going to have more socialist leaning teachings, and they have language classes. It's a really cool place.
cool.
Very
Okay.
Aquarian. Yeah. I'm sure you have so many of those kind of bookstores where
I
you,
gotta look. I don't know. I haven't seen,
yeah.
but I'm sure we do.
On July 10th, we have a full moon in Capricorn at 18 degrees.
So this is the second decan of Capricorn, which is the Three of Pentacles, and that also feels really cute. That feels like organizing energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Learning from your peers, like a skill share, helping one another out. Um, and I really like this because this is the first full moon in Capricorn in a while where I think Pluto hasn't also been in Capricorn.
Yes.
So that's nice.
And the sun is co-joined with Jupiter in Cancer.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that this seems like a pretty nice full moon in terms of full moon in Capricorns. Sometimes when we have the moon in Capricorn, we're like associating our worth with our productivity, or we feel like we have to do something to earn someone's love or to earn a moment of nurturing ourselves to slow down. We have to be like really productive. So I'd say
Mm-hmm.
watch out for that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it can like coincide with a moment of accomplishment or like wrapping up a goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Capricorn moons oftentimes find it difficult to emote and like let their feelings feel the feelings, but then also articulate them because I have a Capricorn moon mother. And also,
Ooh.
I have a lot of Capricorn moon friends, oddly
Mm.
enough.
Mhm.
And they always tell me that they have a very difficult time to feel. And I'm like, well, your moon isn't really meant to feel. Like you can't try to make your thing do the thing that it's not supposed to do.
Right.
Um, because I think in some way feeling might be too overwhelming. So they have to contain it, right? Like the Saturnian holding of the emotions. And I always say, like, the best way to, which is why it's debilitated. I think the best way to deal with a Capricorn moon is to find other ways of expression of feelings. And so a lot of Capricorn moons, I know if they are in the like capitalistic mindset, which my mother is, she tends to work as a way to cope with her feelings.
Mhm.
But my other friends who are a little bit more like conscious people, they will write or
Mm.
they'll do other ways of like expressing their feelings.
Yeah, getting embodied and grounded into the
Mhm.
moment, into your body can be super helpful.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is just like a full moon is 6 months after the new moon in Capricorn, which I don't even remember when that was.
I think
December,
early
January.
January. Yeah.
Yeah. So full moons are just times to I just like to like not do anything specific. Like I don't really like it's not a setting intention kind of thing. It's more of a releasing. It's more of a letting go kind of energy. So, so yeah, I guess whatever manifests for you is based on seeds you planted 6 months ago.
Yes, not a time to set new intentions, but to
Yeah.
just release.
Hmm. Which is wild because in January, Saturn and Neptune weren't in Aries yet.
Yep. Yep.
On July 12th, Saturn will retrograde in Aries at 1 degree. So now the planets are retrograding.
Yes. So this is taking us back to May 24th when Saturn first moved into Aries. I think Saturn retrogrades can have us reflecting on our commitments, who we are
Mhm.
committed to, what we are committed to, and which, and sometimes our boundaries can loosen. We're avoiding having certain conversations. But it's okay to give yourself time if there are difficult conversations you need to have. Um, but yeah, I wonder. Saturn in Aries has been such, it feels so like authoritarian, right? Like we've
Mhm.
seen this like intense display of quote unquote power from these wounded men
Mhm.
and quote unquote leaders. So
Mhm.
I'm curious what we're going to experience when Saturn goes retrograde, and then Saturn will also re-enter Pisces.
Mhm. Yeah, since May, since Saturn entered Aries, you just saw all of these uh authoritarian figures all of a sudden like crash out in diabolical ways, and we're like, we're going to go to war. And it's so interesting how men will drop bombs on people and the normal conflict resolution would be to talk it out. I feel like women would do that, right? We'd hash it out. There'd be awkward like passive aggressiveness, but at least we would try to come to an understanding.
Yeah, we're too quote unquote emotional.
Yes. I whenever I think of Saturn and Aries, I think of like the time is now, because Saturn is such a planet about timing and Aries is like immediately. And so going retrograde, I'm wondering if people are starting to reflect back on some of the action steps they took during this short period between May and July of because it only went to 1 degree.
Yeah, yeah. It's reflecting on like what you've been trying to build. Is it
Mm-hmm.
still meaningful? Is it still worth fighting for, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's an Aries.
Yeah. Is it something you're still committed to?
Hmm.
So July 17th, Mercury goes retrograde in Leo until August
Woo!
11th.
Bring it on.
So you
Yes.
like the retrograde, Mercury retrograde.
Well, you know, I don't know. I can't I couldn't, I was trying to think as I was like taking these notes. I'm like, what was my last year's retrograde in
Mhm.
Leo about? Because it's going to bring us back to last August, which was when we had one. And that one was in Virgo and Leo.
Yeah.
And all I could remember is it's stationed on my moon in Virgo and I had diarrhea. And I feel like I've been talking about diarrhea a lot this week.
You have.
But yeah, that's all I could remember. Um, but yeah, it's gonna bring you back to storylines from last year. Um, I think maybe because Leo's a fixed sign and it's a
Mhm.
retrograde, this can help us expand our mind, like it where we are fixed, in our opinions and our ideas, um, open us up to learning new, putting ourselves in other people's shoes. Great time to pick up old creative hobbies and projects that you kind of like put to the side.
Mhm.
Inner child healing.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I would say look at your Leo house. What topics are are your Leo house, and you're probably going to review something. It could have something to do with communication, traveling, learning. Did I say communication? Yeah,
Mhm.
contracts, even all the mercurial topics. I don't know. Ever since Mars retrograde and Venus retrograde, I feel like Mercury retrogrades aren't even like a big deal anymore.
Totally. I'm like,
They're
whatever.
just kind of like, eh.
Yeah.
Um,
And they get such a
bad rap.
bad rap
Yeah.
in, you know, so on social media and pop culture, but it really is not that big of a deal. It's like reread the text message a couple times before you send. Know
Mhm.
that people might misunderstand you and your intentions. Don't be afraid to overly communicate.
Yeah.
Revisiting the past and slowing down can
Mhm.
actually be beneficial, and like it's like the hanged man. You and I have been
Yes.
pulling the hanged man like for the past week.
Yes.
Boo.
Boo.
Um, but it is in that moment of stillness, like he has that halo around his head,
Mhm.
right? He is being still, and he's able to consider alternative perspectives, ideas, and like that's when you can have aha moments, is when you're not pushing and forcing yourself to produce, to move forward, to hit this goal. It's like it's very, like we've talked about, anti-capitalistic is
Yeah.
Mercury retrograde. So take care of
Yeah.
yourself.
I
Be
was
still.
just going to bring that up. You said that like a couple of years ago when we first started doing these forecasts, that it's like the anti-capitalist transit essentially.
Yeah.
Um there was something else I was going to say about it, but it like flew out of my brain. Um
Oh, retrograde.
I know, right? Yeah, I think also personally it's just like a good time to reflect on yourself and your thoughts and how you talk to yourself. I feel like Leo is such a personal sign, and it's all about like your authenticity at the end of the day. And I think it's just a good time to, because all of the planets were going forward for so long, I think this is just a good time to be like, hey, like let's make sure that what we're co-creating is something that we actually want. And I think that begins with the mind.
Yes. Be
So,
cringe.
yes, yes,
Mhm.
be cringe.
Yeah. That is, as a Mercury and Leo, that is my advice.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And talk about your personal like triumphs and like what your journey is all about, because it's so interesting, because like I feel like I have known you now for a couple years, but even when I watch some of your videos, I'm like, Stephanie, I never knew about that. Like the yo-yo ma thing, I was like, what?
I
Like
know.
Stephanie is like a whole serious journalist.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. My best kept secret. Um,
Literally, I was like, you need to do more videos where you like talk more about yourself, because I'm like,
I
oh, this is
know.
so interesting.
I know. I think it's because of my progress chart. When I was little, I was a terror. All I did was talk about myself. I like had this Stephanie show, and I had this like fake microphone, and I would just like literally record and like just film myself, and you know, and I was so comfortable doing it.
Mhm.
And then my ascendant progressed into Virgo, and all my Leo moved into the 12th house. But that's changing
Ooh.
soon, so buckle up, everyone. So
Buckle up, everyone.
yeah.
My Mercury just moved into Gemini last year. So that's why I'm extra talkative.
Okay, icon. We
Yeah.
love that.
On July 18th, Mercury retrograde in Leo will sextile Venus in Gemini at 15 degrees.
Amazing for just patching up any misunderstandings during the
Mhm.
retrograde.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Cute
with
news.
mhm. Like um making sure that you are investing in your relationships with people, because Venus is relationships, and it's also values, and it's in a relational like communicative sign. So that could be good for that. And I just wrote this in because I thought this was significant. On July 20th, Mars conjoins the South Node. And not to be a Debbie Downer, but that aspect is also what happened during 9/11, COVID, and October 7th of 2023. Uh,
Oh, I saw
Sam Reynolds.
yes, I haven't watched
Yeah.
it yet, but I saw Sam Reynolds made a
Yeah.
video about this. Oh, I need to watch that.
And I watched his video and I looked back at all the charts and I was like, oh, yeah. So, July 20th, just be aware. And like, people hate hearing like reality, but it's like, wouldn't you rather hear if there's going to be a hurricane than not? Like,
Right.
weather wise, like, you want to prepare, you need to like tape up your windows or whatever. I would rather know and like prepare myself than not. Somebody on my TikTok was like, my life was perfect before I watched this video, and now I'm scared.
Was it a white girl? Probably.
I don't know, but I was like, babe, you don't have to watch this. You can like scroll past me.
Oh my gosh. I mean, look, like you said earlier in this forecast, astrology rhymes, right?
Mhm,
History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes. And that's what we're doing. We're doing a weather report. That's what
mhm,
these astrology forecasts are all about. So we're having similar patterns and energy to those events. And there were a lot of other astrological happenings at the
mhm.
time of those events. So like
Yes.
9/11, Pluto was opposite Saturn. That's like a
Yes.
disgusting transit, right?
Mhm,
COVID had a Saturn Pluto conjunction, also
mhm,
disgusting.
mhm.
So you have to keep it in context, right? It's not just this
A
specific
vacuum, yeah.
Mars
Mhm,
South node, but it's important to know.
mhm. It's important to know because I don't know if you have this saying in San Francisco, but in New York, it's see when you see something, you say something. Like, you constantly hear that on the subway.
Mhm.
And it is that. It's like when you're out and about in a public space and you see something or somebody else mentions something to you, it's just good to be aware
Yeah.
versus like going about your life like in this delusion, because we just live in a time of it's we are in a time of revolution. So
Hmm.
just be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on July 22nd, the sun enters Leo, and Stephanie wrote, Yum, thank heavens. Why,
Bias right there.
Stephanie?
This
Why?
this is what we mean when we say that legacy media outlets have bias. So do your astrologers. I love a little sun in Leo action.
Yeah. Woof. The water seasons are rough for fire rising signs because they like put out our fire.
Ugh. Yeah, so emo.
Yes. So we are officially in Leo season. And then on the same day, the sun in Leo will sextile Uranus and Gemini at 0 degrees.
New vibes. New
Mhm.
vibes. We haven't had the Sun in Leo meeting with Uranus and Gemini. This feels fun, flirty, cute. Like you're taking a risk and you're being confident and courageous.
Mhm.
We'll see. Report back.
Yes. And we had a sun Uranus conjunction last month, right? In Taurus at like 26 degrees, was it?
We
So this
did.
is like the opening sextile.
Hmm.
And it's at 0 degrees. It feels very fresh. Like,
Hmm.
we're starting something new, everybody.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah. On July 23rd, Venus and Gemini will square Mars and Virgo at 21 degrees.
Gross. Yeah. When Venus and Mars, I used to, it's so funny because when I was like first getting into astrology and I was like self taught, I was like, ooh, any Venus and Mars aspect, like sexy, chemistry, great for
Mhm,
creativity. Like, sure. But historically, every Venus Mars aspect, like especially a square or an opposition, fighting, fighting
mhm,
with a partner. You're fighting or you're fucking or you're doing both.
mhm. Yeah, arguments.
Hmm.
Um, conflict with like your ideologies or ways to go about doing things. I have a lot of friends who are obviously married, and I always like clock when there's a Venus square Mars because they're always texting me like, my husband's a jerk.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And I'm
It
like,
that
it could have something to do with the square.
it totally it's like this crisis point and it gives you the courage to release tension or, address any resentment.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then you have them coming through in these two Mercury ruled signs, so it's like it makes you think of arguing
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, I could see like this being very judgmental and nitty-gritty and nitpicky,
It feels
especially Mars
like
and Virgo.
it feels like internet troll
Mhm.
activity. You could fight with anyone. It doesn't have to be your lover. It could be a best friend. It could be a roommate. It's just like this day where there is tension.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have a lot of stuff going on July 24th, so you might want to look out for that one. The first one is the Sun in Leo will trine Saturn in Aries, and then it will trine Neptune in Aries. We have, I'll just go through them. New moon in Leo at 1 degree, and then the Sun in Leo will be opposite Pluto in Aquarius at 2 degrees.
This is such a big day.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, like Sun opposite Pluto can be intense. I think collectively, like secrets are going to be revealed. It reveals corruption. It reveals like horrible manipulation and power struggles and displays. Um, but as a Pluto person, a Sun Pluto person, I feel like the opposition is also a moment of like profound healing and self awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
it can give you the courage to choose differently and to transform. And it can be healing. And sometimes it can be empowering. Sometimes it can be like you're facing a fear and you're sharing your truth. And that feels scary in the moment, but then it feels healing afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to even say, I think this has something to do with standing up to an abusive situation or reclaiming your power back, remembering like who you are. Because, the sun is in its domicile in Leo and it's
Mhm.
opposite Pluto in Aquarius. This is also the opening opposition, right? From the, what's it called? The
Inauguration.
inauguration. Fall of a king, anyone?
Hey, hey.
We're like,
Yes,
wait, we want this so badly.
I know.
We're just joking around,
It's just a joke. This is for entertainment purposes only.
literally. But I really like that the sun is making a trine to Saturn and Neptune. It's like um this also being a new moon, having new dreams about something. They're fire trines. It's like very creatively expressive and just like I'm going to go out and get my dreams. I'm going to make them happen.
I think this is a great new moon.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, a fresh beginning for your sense of self, for your authenticity, your identity, new personal goals. You have the stability of Saturn, you have the dreams and can hold the vision thanks to Neptune, and you have that courage um, to break cycles and try something differently thanks to that like Sun Pluto opposition.
Yeah. It's in the first decan of Leo, which is the Five of Wands. How do you interpret the Five of Wands? I'm interested.
Um, as like it can be like a conflict or competition energy or um, really like fighting hard to make a name for yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
There's like tons of people there and you all have different perspectives and you have to learn how to like work together
Mhm.
or you have to work extra hard to be seen because that's what Leo
Mhm.
wants.
Mm. Yeah.
What about you? What does this deacon mean?
Um, so I used to think of it as like competition, like
Hmm.
your inability to stand out. But then I was like, um, yes, but I think that's because you're not in alignment with your authenticity. And so,
Hmm.
like, all of the competing, because there's a lot of people, but the people can also be just like um, aspects of yourself that are not in alignment because everyone's trying to like work together to like build this thing. And I think the competition might be because you're trying to be like everyone else when you're really just meant to be yourself.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And that's what Leo is, right? Leo, I feel like Leo and Aquarius are both about authenticity, but they go about it in different ways because Leo's energy is from within out, and like Aquarius energy is almost like out, like as a group.
Hmm.
Like we all have a shared authentic vision because it's about the group, and Leo is of self.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately this new moon is just to like be yourself. Is that so cheesy?
No, it's totally
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
So it's a beautiful new moon. And then on July 30th, Chiron retrograde in Aries at 27 degrees.
So this is going to bring us back to December 29th of last year, which is when Chiron's retrograde ended. So similar themes and storylines will carry over. Um, yeah, I think, it can be a day of wounds reemerging, of you recognizing or feeling like where you feel like you have done all the healing and you've closed that chapter, maybe something pokes it and then it starts to deflate and you're like, oh no, I have some more healing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That's like part of our journey here as humans. We're never fully healed. That's like fake.
Yeah. I see Chiron and Aries in so many people that are like, what am I supposed to do? It's
Mm,
like that inability to understand that your sovereignty comes from within and you're not supposed to wait for a leader or like someone to tell you what to do.
permission. Yeah.
Permission, thank you, that was the word I was looking for.
Mm,
And I think a lot of people need to understand that like we live in a patriarchy that infantilizes people and tells people that they're not capable of remembering that we are all sovereign beings, and there's no president or king that's going to save us.
yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's why we have so much Aries energy, is
Yes.
like you got to do something.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And yeah, I like working with Chiron because it's like, wow, ouch. But I
Major
know
ouch.
a lot of astrologers who are also healers use work with Chiron.
Mm-hmm.
On July 30th, Venus enters Cancer until August 24th.
Yeah. This is cute.
Mhm.
Um, I think, in terms of dating, people might be wanting something a little bit more serious or to settle
Mhm.
down. It can make you more nostalgic. It can make you think about exes. It can make you crave more security. You want to spend time with people who make you feel seen and
And
like you
at home.
belong. Yeah.
Yeah. Or stay at home.
Mhm. Or stay at home. Yeah, yeah. Definitely.
I'm sorry. I'm an Aries and I continually find myself offending people during Cancer season.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. No.
I love y'all Cancers, but it's like sometimes the most annoying energy to me because it's like Venus and Cancer people just like when they meet you, which I think some people really like, they like latch on and they're like, I want
Mm,
to be with you. And as somebody who has my Venus in Aquarius, I'm like,
that's not for you.
that's not for me. I'm
Mm-mm.
like,
Yeah.
ah. So I think Venus and Cancer people like really like they just want to love on you and like ugh, you're just like, just a mush of love and comfort and I want to cook for you and I want to take you home,
Cuddles,
cuddle.
nurture, meet my mom, be my
Yes.
mom,
Ah,
mother me. Yeah.
yes, mother
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
And that like for somebody like me that would freak me out a little bit.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it's definitely the vibe of like you go on a first date and then you're looking up wedding venues on your drive home or something,
Yes.
like calm down.
Yes. So I in my 20s, I was dating this guy. He was a Gemini, but he had a Venus in Cancer. And the second date, he wanted to introduce me to his parents. And I was like, whoa, buddy. Like, I thought we were just getting to know each other.
That is so funny. And oh my gosh, I did not even think about it. But on like my fourth date with Joey, he's a Cancer rising, he introduced me to like all of his family. He like took me to this event and I had no clue. He's like, "Do you want to go to this like I forget what it was. It was like a wine mixer down the
Mhm.
street." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." A wine tasting. And like literally his entire family was there and like his preschool teacher was there and like all of these people that he's known in his entire life was there and I was just like
Yeah.
dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. But look, you made it.
I survived that date. Yeah.
Yeah, family is a big thing for Cancer people.
For better or
Um,
for worse.
for better or for worse, doesn't mean that they have a good relationship with them, but it's a part of their experience.
Hmm.
Also, on the mundane level, the USA has a Venus in Cancer and Jupiter in Cancer. And there's just a
And so
lot of,
does Israel.
yes, yes,
And that's their chart ruler because they're Libra
yes,
rising.
yeah,
So blah. And then
yeah,
Chiron's going retrograde in Aries on the same day. Blah. Yeah.
yes.
So
And I have to say, Venus in Cancer, Venus, okay, sorry, rewind. Cancer is also nationalism and
mhm.
homeland. And anytime I've noticed that there's like cardinal sign activity and it's squaring, or actually even recently when we had the solstice, it just like it just makes the what do I want to call it? I'll just say Israel. I was going to say something else mean, but um it like further agitates them. Like it makes them fearful and also like our homeland, our homeland. Meanwhile, like they have two passports, you
It
know?
makes them commit war crimes.
Yes.
Hmm.
So again, I think something else is going to happen with them. This story, um, yeah.
That's a good call out. Absolutely.
Hopefully, it means that they open the borders, that
Yeah.
Gaza can have food and water and baby formula.
Baby formula.
Crazy. Because, mothers, Cancer, and hopefully Venus and Cancer.
Mm.
On July 31st, the sun in Leo will conjunct Mercury retrograde in Leo at 9
Yeah.
degrees.
This is our halfway point of the Mercury retrograde story. Um, a moment of clarity, a great time to clear things up, and probably a deeper moment of understanding your personal retrograde story. So you're like, oh, this is why those annoying or inconvenience things
Mm-hmm.
have happened, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very clarifying. Um, and do you remember when the retrograde ends? Probably sometime in August.
Yeah, I think it's early August. I think it's August
Oh,
11th.
11th at 4
Yeah,
degrees. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it's the halfway point. But that is the forecast for July.
Yes. It's a long one because it's a big one.
Yes. But the
Yeah.
next forecast, Stephanie and I will be together.
In person. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't wait. I can't wait. Yes. So buckle up. It's going to be the ride of your lifetimes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.